Lt Colonel David Humphreys. It is very nice to see you all here on a fine day today. It is right here in Chewstown, as this part of Derby is known. I'm particularly interested in the falls down here. The fast-moving Naugatuck River and the falls, because, you see, I believe that self-sufficiency is what's going to make our country great. God willing, we succeed in this struggle, we have to be self-sufficient. When we think about the economy and how the economy is working here, it's all controlled by Parliament. You've got these people in Parliament who have friends in the East India Tea Company, the West India Tea Company, and they're attempting to manipulate our economy. So here these people are out in England. They never had the courage like we, our fathers, our forefathers did to come over and carve a civilization out of the wilderness. And as a result, you know, now that we've made something of it, England is still preventing us from doing what we can do best. They will not allow us to make any manufacturing facilities of any note. Now, a little bit of, you know, a blacksmith shop here or there is fine, but we have to import all of our wools and textiles from Mother England. We're not allowed to import it from anywhere else. They're controlling our economy. The French have a word for being able to do what we do, go out and become self-sufficient and create our own businesses. Entrepreneurism. Being a very secret expedition of which I had the honor of being part of, and we went over in a number of whale boats, and we rowed over from Connecticut over to Long Island, marched on Sag Harbor, and took the town. There were two objectives. Colonel Meigs went after the objective of the barracks and the stronghold up on the hill by the church and the cemetery, and the other objective was, for which I had the great honor of leading the right wing, was to take another group of troops and go up and secure the officers' barracks. And when we secured the officers' barracks, the men had no leadership. So we essentially decapitated their leadership, well, not literally, figuratively. And this is war after all, you know. And these things do quite a good job, by the way. Decapitation, but we don't want to go there. It's an ugly thing, but this, by the way, is over 200 years old. This is the 200-year-old building. They're very important to the war effort. But they also chose aide-de-camp not only for their education and disposition, as well as, of course, their patriotism, but they also chose them for how they would distinguish themselves in battle. And with that, we always had to be at their side during battles, and then in peacetime, or not peacetime, when you're not in a battle, you would be at the headquarters, and you would always, but whenever you rode out, you had no idea when you'd be intercepted. So we had to be very well schooled with the art of the sword and the pistol. We had to be soldiers at first, and then aide-de-camps and such after that. Some people think, oh, aide-de-camp, you're just kind of sitting around and writing orders, and you're not really doing that much. You're not with the fighting men. That's not true, especially when you're on the battlefield, and especially when you have to go on dangerous missions, particularly the spy missions that would occur down in the New York City from time to time, which I cannot say too much about. Only that I did have a former classmate of mine at Yale, years younger than me, Captain Nathan Hale, was attempting on a spy mission on a very dangerous mission. He got captured by the British and hung. It was terrible. But he was a very bright and promising young man, only 21 years old, and his life was cut short. So, and now you're ready. So, stand over there, please. And again, the question is whether or not it'll fire. And so what you then do, you're now at half cock. This is a safety position. And if I were to try to squeeze the trigger right now, it doesn't fire. Hence the term going off half cock. You haven't fully prepared. So, what you then do is you bring it back to a full cock. Now you're ready. And so, okay. Sometimes he just stands there and flinches, other times he dances, other times I just wake him up. Fire. Oh, boy. Boy. He is not happy with it. Boy. That is also why I was actually relay a Dr. Franklin has this wonderful toast I'd like to share with you now. Dr. Franklin, as you know, has been looking after our interests in France during the war. And of course, as part of that, he has to attend all these dinners with the court of Louis XVI. And as a result, there are many, many toasts that are drunk. It's a way for all the courtiers and the folks in the court to basically get toasted. That's where the term comes from, I'd imagine. So, as a result, one time, one of the senior courtiers had stood up and had a toast. And he said, "Ladies and gentlemen, I give you the sun, and I shall call him the King of France." And everybody, here, toasted, and has a drink. And then he stands up again and he says, "And now I shall give you the moon." Of course, the moon is but a reflection of the sun. "And I shall call him the King of England." Everybody stands up and drinks there. So you see, typical French way, they toasted the sun, which is the brightest thing in the sky, to their king, and then the moon, which is nothing but a pale reflection, to the British king. I thought that was a rather interesting thing. And then he turns to Dr. Franklin and figures, oh, I'm doing really well here. And he says, "Dr. Franklin, who shall you toast to, with the sun and the moon already thus engaged?" And Dr. Franklin gets up, picks up his glass, and he says, "Well, folks, I cannot give you the sun or the moon or any other, or the stars or any other celestial body for that matter. But I do give you these United States, who, like Job from the Bible, could get the sun and the moon and the stars to stand still for as long as he pleased. To these United States, ladies and gentlemen." Washington, sir, never had wooden teeth, just so you know for the record. And I would be happy to put you in touch with Washington's headquarters in Newburgh, New York, to be able to clarify some of those. But yes, actually all you need are two opposing teeth. Just that however you rip the cartridge, it doesn't matter how. You got to rip the cartridge with one hand because you're holding your musket in the other as part of the drill. And that's where the technology takes us. It's something, if we could have a magic gun that you could pull the trigger and go bang, 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 then one person can do the entire job of a platoon of soldiers. And so when you look at the tactics, and that's something that's very interesting, you see everybody lined up and firing in one direction. And that's because that's a limitation of the technology. Because a musket, if I fired with a standard musket, smoothbore musket, I could hit that tree over there, maybe a little bit further, but that's about it. There's no way I could aim unless we've got one of Daniel Morgan's special long-barreled rifles, but those are very rare. As a result, it does not, you have to be able to use the principles of mass firepower. So when you have a line of 20 men lined up firing, that is essentially a linear shotgun, in which each person, each man is firing one of the balls. And they're all firing it in a general direction against a line of other men. And that's the limitation of the technology. When the technology evolves and changes, and suddenly you become much more accurate, you can do multiple rounds without having to, firing multiple rounds without having to reload, that would be amazing. But that would also be far more deadly. And if the tactics don't evolve around the technology, then there's going to be a lot more people dead in the battle. And I would probably venture to predict that in future warfare, when weapons become far more accurate and far more distant, that if they still use the same old style of lining people up for principles of mass firepower, you're going to see far greater casualties than we've ever seen in any war today. Other questions? Yes, sir. I, grew up from the early 1750s until I left for Yale. Graduated Yale in '71, and then went to Wethersfield and took a position as a schoolmaster there in Wethersfield. And then left Wethersfield to the Phillipses, came back to Yale, got my master's in 1774, and then lived at home and taught school in my brother's schoolhouse in New Haven until the war started, and then I enlisted from there. So I have basically, from when I was born until about 17